Hello and welcome to part two, the below approach. In part one, we learned that our thoughts give us the power to take control in the moment before the urges take over, before our body gets taken over by the moment and we buy into the sales pitch, so to speak, that the pornography or the opportunity is giving us. And that gives us power in any set of circumstances to make the decision, make the choice that we want to make. And our mindset going into that, the beliefs and the mindset that we take into any moment, into any circumstance, dictates the amount of control and power that we feel going into that. Now, part two, the below approach, looks at the roots of the addiction, the roots of the problem. What is it that is driving you to pornography in the first place? So here's what I tell all of my clients. Pornography is really only about 5 to 10% of the problem. All right, now that might sound inaccurate to you at first, but in reality, that comes to be true as we work through things with clients and we kind of flesh things out and dive deeper, okay? So it starts out as this euphoric experience when you first come across pornography. You know, it's just this incredible thing that you find that just feels really good to look at. But then it becomes something different, and it always functions differently for you in some way, and it can be different for different people, okay? Now, human beings only do anything for one of two reasons, okay? We only do things because it provides us with something positive or because it takes away something negative, okay? So let me give some really simple examples of that. All right, I eat a cookie, it tastes good. All right, that's called positive reinforcement, right? I eat it, it tastes good, it gives me a good feeling. That makes me want to eat a cookie again, okay? Now, what if I have a headache? Okay, if I have a headache, I take an Advil, my headache goes away. That Advil took away my headache. So that's going to make me want to take an Advil again the next time I have a headache because it successfully took away my headache. And so that's an example of something taking away a negative, and that's a positive for me. Okay, that's what we call negative reinforcement. All right, that word is misused a lot of the times, but negative reinforcement is a good thing. Okay, so pornography does both. Okay, it both provides you with a good feeling, but it also can take away a bad feeling. So example being, if you are feeling anxious, you're feeling stressed, right, you watch pornography, all of a sudden in the moment, all of those stressful feelings, they go away. Now, why is that? It's because when you watch pornography, you're not just getting dopamine. You know, dopamine is kind of the LeBron James of neurochemicals, right? It's really famous. It's really well known, but there are a lot of other neurotransmitters that play a part when you watch pornography. Okay, so you've got also a huge uptick in things like the epinephrine, which is sort of like your brain's. Epinephrine is adrenaline, and the norepinephrine is your brain's version of adrenaline, which makes you alert. It kind of gives that excitability. You get a huge uptake in serotonin, which gives you that anti-anxiety, gives you that feel good, gives you that mood boost. You also get things like oxytocin, which is the bonding chemical. It gives you that feeling of connection and love. Okay, that's what's released when we have sex, meant to bond us with another human being. When you're releasing that during porn, you're bonding with a phone screen or a computer screen, right? And so there's a lot of emptiness there because we're bonding with nothing. Essentially, we're bonding with the abyss, essentially. All right, so you look at porn when you're stressed. All of a sudden, all these chemicals come in and they take away those negative feelings because they're being washed away by all this flood of neurotransmitters. Okay. And so then porn becomes very useful for you, okay? So I always ask my clients, like, what is porn doing for you, all right? And the answer to that question can never be nothing, all right? You can never be, it's only doing bad things for me. It's only a negative in my life. That's not true, because if that were true, you wouldn't be watching porn, all right? Your brain only gets you to pursue things that it sees as valuable. It sees it as either a major source of pleasure or something that's going to take away your pain. Okay? And so when we dive into the roots of things, it can be a myriad of different things. It doesn't have to be one thing. Okay? For you, it can be multiple things that it is driving you to pornography, to use pornography as a tool, as a utility to cope with deficits in your life. All right, so let me give you an example from my own life. All right, now when I was struggling with it, I just assumed that it was just an addiction. It was all neurochemical. I looked really into the neuroscience of it. It was just this addiction cycle that had me trapped. And I failed to look at what it was psychologically, emotionally that was keeping me latched on and creating the demand for the porn in my life. And so when I started doing the deep work, I realized that pornography for me, it created this source of unlimited appreciation, admiration, and connection in which I was never able to be rejected. All right, so growing up, I grew up in a good house. Didn't have a lot of complaints about my house. Pretty good, middle class. We didn't have a bad home whatsoever, but it was not a very affectionate home. Okay, so I grew up in a home that we didn't say I love you a lot. We didn't hug, kiss, anything like that. And so I grew up kind of distant emotionally. All right, and so when I first was introduced to porn, I described it as a warm hug. It was like all of this oxytocin that I should have been getting from my parents. All of a sudden, I'd get this rush of oxytocin from pornography. And all of a sudden, I feel connection for the first time in my life. And I was also homeschooled, so I didn't get a lot of connection from people. I felt very isolated, and I had a hard time making friends. And so, here's this thing that now it's like, oh, I can go and get this feeling of being admired and connected without any fear of rejection, ever. And so that's what made it so appealing to me, even though I didn't realize that. And that's what created the draw for me, was I had this deficit of needing connection and true intimacy in my heart and in my soul. And because I didn't have that, I went and sought that in a cheap substitute, which was pornography. And I did that for years and years and years. And ironically, it just made me more lonely and more without that, because it kept me from being able to make true connections. And it made me even more afraid of true intimacy, right? Because I relied on the pornography for that instead of learning how to be authentic with real people. And so for you, it could be something completely different. It could be that you just use pornography as an anti-anxiety medication, right? It can be kind of like a Xanax, right? You're feeling stressed, you're feeling anxiety. I run to porn just to kind of take that away, to kind of zone out from the world, kind of feel blissful for a moment. And of course, the thing about that is, afterwards, you go right back to feeling all the things you felt beforehand, right? And so that's where that strategy from part one has to come in asking, okay, what am I being sold here, and is it really going to pay off? Because it might be selling me this promise of taking my anxiety away, but is it actually going to? Because it's probably only going to last for 5-10 minutes, however long, right? So we have to get into the root, because here's the analogy, right? If we have a tree, all right, and the tree is a problem, the tree's causing issues, the tree's too close to the house, it's going to fall on the house, or the limbs are falling off, causing issues, whatever. We need to get rid of the tree. Like we can cut the limbs off, we can cut it down to the stump, we can get rid of the tree. But if the stump is still alive, the roots are still alive, that tree can come right back up. All right, and that's essentially what's going on here. The roots of this behavior go deep. The roots for you are embedded in your childhood and your early experiences, and those are the things that create the demand for pornography that's driving you to use pornography to cope with these deficits in your life, and run to pornography as your go-to thing that you use when you feel that need in your life. Okay, and A great example of this, there's just this really annoying uh, weed that we had in this landscape island we had at my old house, and this really random plant used to pop up. I don't know if somebody planted it there. It looked like some kind of like Southwest plant. Okay, it was just kind of spiky, and we tried to get rid of it for years and years and years, and I'd cut it down as deep as I could get it, but it had a really, really deep taproot. Okay, and I did everything. I mean, I cut it down, I poured chemicals on it, did everything that I could, but it was so deep down in the ground that it would continuously come back year after year after year because it was actually alive. The life of that plant was actually down there deep underground. It wasn't on the surface where we could see it, it was deep down underground. And until I was able to get deep enough down there, and I took the time to really dig several feet down and then kill it down there, it wasn't until I did that that it finally stopped coming back. Okay, and so that's what we have to do if we want to permanently fix this issue and give you complete freedom, total freedom, and permanent freedom. We have to find the roots of your problem and eliminate that, heal that, to give you permanent freedom. So what does that look like? For my clients, I use a therapy called EMDR. That is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy. So I would highly suggest, if this is something you're serious about overcoming, finding an EMDR therapist. Now, I can do EMDR if you want to work with me. If you don't want to work with me, find somebody that does EMDR and tell them specifically that you want to, target this and do EMDR. Now, EMDR was specifically designed for trauma therapy. That's kind of how it developed, but it's since been used for a whole bunch of different things and found to be successful. It is very useful in addiction because addiction is very tied to trauma, and we all have trauma, even if you don't label it as trauma. We all have things in our history that are disturbing to us, that bother us, that create scars psychologically for us that eventually become the dysfunctions that we have in our present day. And that's often what happens with pornography, is we use pornography to cope with our discomforts. We use pornography to, um, you know, try to be a cheap substitute for those things that we lack in our life. And so, the first step is identifying, all right, in what way am I using pornography to alleviate some type of deficit or need in my life? Okay, and so if we were doing an EMDR session, this is how we would identify it. Okay, so we can do an easy little exercise here together. All right, just take a recent example. Take a recent time where you had a negative experience with pornography. All right, maybe it was a time that you got caught. Maybe it was just a time that you went too far, went further than you wanted to, and you felt really terrible. Maybe it was a time that you just felt like giving up. Just think of a recent experience that kind of exemplifies all the negative emotions that you feel surrounding this problem. Something that led you to want to even be here today, working on this. Right? What is that? What is that moment? And I want you to go to the worst moment of that experience, whatever the peak emotional state, the peak negative emotional state of that moment is. I want you to just kind of put yourself in that moment and just sit there for a second. And I just want you to observe the sensations, the emotions, any sights, sounds, smells, even. I want you to take notice of where you feel that in your body. Is there any particular place in your body where you feel that emotion? Some people feel it in their gut. Some people feel it on the back of their neck and in their head. They feel a rush in their head. Some people feel tension in their body in different places. Just take notice of where in your body you're feeling that. Okay, and any thoughts that are going through your head. What thoughts are you thinking about yourself, about your situation in that moment, okay? And just focus on that for a moment, all right? And now, as you think about that experience and you just kind of think of the summation of that sensation, right? If you allow your mind to drift back, now, not thinking too hard about anything in particular, but just allowing your mind to drift back on its own to earlier experiences in your life. Whatever first comes to your head without making judgments about it, whatever first pops in your head early in your life, what comes up? What pops in there? Right? Now, it might not make sense at first, but take notice, okay? So, this might be a place to pause the video and really think about, what does that mean? This early experience that just came into my mind, how did that become a building block for this later experience where I feel all these negative emotions towards myself and towards this problem that I have with pornography? How is that related to, my current day situation where I'm using pornography to cope? Like, how are those things connected? Okay. That's the kind of thing that you need to work through. You need to explore. You need to ask the questions like, what is going on here? What are the building blocks of my own psychological innermost being, in my innermost thoughts? Okay, and another thought experiment and an exercise you can do is it's called the thought ladder exercise. Take a negative thought that you think towards yourself. Imagine you've just you've just had a relapse. What's a thought you think towards yourself in that moment? Maybe it's that I suck. Maybe it's that I'm a failure. Maybe it's that I'm no good. Maybe it's that I'm all alone and I'm always going to be alone. What are those thoughts? You could take thoughts that you have before relapse. What thoughts led you to relapse? I'm never going to get over this. I'm just a screw up. I'm always going to be alone. What thoughts are they? Now, take a thought, whatever thought you want to be. Let's just think of the thought of I'm a loser. What if that was your thought? And just take that and ask the question, what does that mean if that were true? Okay, in every stage we'll just ask, okay, what if that's 100% true? What does that mean for you? Okay, well, if it's true that I'm a loser, that probably means that no one likes me. Okay, well, let's take that one and ask the same question. Okay, if it's true that no one likes me, what does that mean for me? Okay, well, if no one likes me, that means that I'm going to be all alone. Okay, if that's true that I'm going to be all alone, what does that mean to me? That I'm unlovable, right? Okay, and if I'm unlovable, what does that say about me? What does that say about me as a person? Well, it says that I'm worthless, right? And so if you take a thought that you think at the surface and you narrow it down and you find beneath the surface what that means to you, you find at the bottom a core belief. Okay, and the most common core beliefs are I'm worthless, I'm not good enough, I'm unlovable, and really those are the three big ones. There are some others, but those are the three big negative core beliefs. We all want to feel a sense of worth. We want to feel a sense of self-esteem. We want to feel a sense of connection to other people, which is why we want to feel that we're lovable. Okay, and you can take these thoughts that you're thinking, these negative thoughts, and you can find the core belief that's underneath them. And that could be part of the root of what is driving you to seek out pornography is you have these core beliefs about yourself that are negative, and you essentially just given up on yourself because you dislike yourself, and you feel that it's easier just to give up and give in and seek out something that you at least feel some sort of, some sort of connection, some sort of, admiration from someone else, even if it's completely fake and fabricated, right? And so, you seek out pornography to get a little sense of, you know, satisfaction, a little sense of connection with another human being, without any fear of rejection, right? I want to feel lovable. Well, no one's going to love me because I'm trash. So at least I can feel like, I'm getting some connection by fantasizing through this scene in this video, right? And that's what it can be for you. So part of the below method in finding this root and healing this root is challenging that belief and asking, is that even true? What might be more true? And what should I rather believe about myself? And that's difficult to do on your own, which is why I highly suggest working that out with a therapist, whether it's me or a therapist in your area, a therapist online, a coach, a pastor, a good friend, a spouse, partner, whoever it is. I think that's a journey best taken with another human being that you can actually talk things out with, because that's some deep work, and you can certainly do some of that work on your own, in your own mind, but it's hard to open up those deep doors and get down there and rework all of that stuff by yourself. And I strongly believe that EMDR accelerates that path, because what EMDR does is the eye movements are nothing magical or special. It's not like hypnosis or anything. It's just the eye movements seem to, there's a theory it simulates REM sleep. I don't know about that. I just think that the eye movements kind of distract you a little bit. It gets past, kind of in the same way that alcohol bypasses this frontal part of your brain that's inhibitory. Your inhibitions are down, right? That frontal part of your brain is a little bit too analytic, right? It's thinking too hard. And so when you're doing the eye movements while you're processing these things, it kind of taxes that part of your brain so that it can't overthink things. And that lets you get to the deeper part of the brain where it needs to be to process that deep stuff. And that allows your brain to actually really process those deep thoughts and deep memories. And it gets to an accelerated reprocessing of these core beliefs and these old memories. And you see really rapid changes in personality, in mindset, in beliefs, and really rapid relief from traumatic experiences, traumatic memories. And I've had clients who were in their 60s and had dealt with insecurity their whole life, and then we did a few sessions of EMDR and were radically changed and came to realize that all of that was based in childhood experiences, and it was silly of them to still be worried about how they looked when they were 60 and walked out a completely different person. It's like it just unlocks something in the brain that's just kind of had these walls of defenses around it for so many years. And so I think that's something that EMDR can do beautifully. It's hard to do it on your own. I don't suggest doing it on your own. In fact, I suggest do not do it on your own, because you need to do it with somebody who's trained to do it. I took 48 hours of training plus 10 hours of consultation to get trained in it. It's not something that's just you go out and do EMDR, all right? So make sure you do it with a trained EMDR therapist. But there are also other ways to get in and do these, this root work too. It doesn't have to be EMDR. But the most important thing is that you figure out what it is that is driving you to need pornography. What is creating the demand in your life? And then find a way to uproot that. Find a way to kill those roots so that there's just not a need for it. Because if you take care of the problem today and you eliminate the behavior but you don't kill the root, you're just as likely to become addicted all over again. And you don't want that. So permanent freedom is possible, but it requires you to not only build the skills to take control of pornography today, but it also requires you to find the roots that drove you to porn in the first place and heal those, tear them out, get rid of them. And the next step, which kind of interweaves both of the above and below approaches, is the within approach. And the within approach is, it's different for different people. Okay, so if you are a person of faith, the within approach deals with learning how to integrate your faith into this journey and learn how to embrace grace. If you are not a person of faith, the within approach is more about learning how to, find peace within yourself and show grace towards yourself. And so it's a little bit different for different people. So we're going to have two different parts to the within approach. In the next video, I'm going to split it up into two halves. So whether you are a person of faith, being of the Christian faith, it'll be the first half of the video. If you are a person of a different faith, or you don't really resonate with the Christian faith, then you can go ahead and skip to the second half of the video, and I'll explain where that starts at the beginning of the video. All right, so I look forward to seeing you in part 3, the within approach.